Hello everybody, we're getting ready to do lesson 4.2 for Algebra 2 Math. Here is part 1, 4.2, graph exponential decay functions. We have 18 points here of notes on your note-taking guide, and then we have a 42-point skill sheet to work on. Here is your standard. Here are all the standards in chapter 4, and this is part 1. Teachers, here's your bell work for your students. The range of this function, the inverse of this function. Give them about 4 minutes to do this. Okay, welcome back, everybody. This would be your solution here. The inverse of function y is this here. X minus 1, question mark plus 2. And then the range of this function would be y is greater than or equal to 1, because your graph just takes off like that. Okay, graphing exponential decay functions. You graphed and use exponential growth. You will graph and use exponential decay. Parent function for exponential decay functions. F of x equals b to the x, where 0 is less than b and b is less than 1. So this right here has these values here. That'd be the parent function of the decay function with base b. The general shape of the graph, f of x equals b of x, shown below. So this would be the shape here from left to right. The graph falls from left to right, passing through the points 0, 1 right here. So it would go like this. The x-axis is an asymptote for the graph, like here. And the domain of f of x, b to the x, is all real. So we have all real numbers here for your domain. The range is y is greater than 0. Okay, students, in your own words, define exponential decay function and decay factor here in your own words. Okay, example 1, graph y equals b to the x for these values here. So graph y equals 1/2 to the x power. Make a table of values. Here's a table of values for this function right here. Plot the points from the table. So from our previous table here, we plot our points and we follow this curve here for that. Draw from right to left. Well, they draw from right to left. I draw from left to right like this. A smooth curve that begins just above the x-axis passes through the plotted points and moves up to the left. Well, I think we read from left to right. I'd rather plot like that. Okay, so our first guided practice here, graph the function. So we have a decay function here. And students down here, this is your decay function down here. Use your table or use your graphing calculator. I got to practice here. We're going to graph this thing here, and here's what it should look like here. It's a pretty steep decay function. Okay, transformation. We call the graph of y equals ab to the x is a vertical stretch or shrink of y equals b to the x, and the graph of y equals ab to the x minus h plus k is a translation of this type of graph here. Okay, we're going to example 2 here. Graph this function here. And here's our function here that we need to graph. So plot 0, 2, and 1 and 1/2. We know that much from our general manner of graphing this function here. When x equals 0, y would equal 2. And then when x equals 1, y would equal 1/2. We know that much just by looking at it. So here are 2 points here. Right to left, draw a curve that begins just above the y-axis. This would be a way to generalize the curve. The more accurate way of doing it on a graphing calculator is to make a table. But this is the general shape. You have 2 points here, and the rest of it you can just sketch in. Okay, example 2 again, graph the function. So we have a graph of this now. And we know just by looking at 0, -3, and 1 and -6/5 would be 2. You could plot to start your graphing. Here it is here. So we go up like this. That begins just below the x-axis. And then passes through the 2 points, moves down to the left. They start this way and go like that. I'd rather go like this here, but it's up to you. Okay, so we have guided practice here. We're going to graph this. Students, this is on you. Use your table or use your graphing calculator. Let's get into our guided practice. We're going to graph that there. And here is how it looks on a graphing calculator. Here is your curve here. When x equals 0, y would equal 3. That'd be your y-intercept right there. And then here would be the table here. When x equals 0, y equals 3. And then all these other values would be used to plot your graph. And that was lesson 4.2 of Algebra 2. If you want part 2 and part 3 of 4.2, email me here so I can get those out to you. And if you need online tutoring, email me here as well. Thank you very much.